Every man thinks he wants success with women, but what he truly wants is to be a man who women respect, who men admire, and who the world follows without hesitation. Not just the man who gets the girl, but the man she doesn't want to lose. That is the high-value man. And here's the truth. Becoming that man isn't about wearing a Rolex or faking confidence on Instagram. It's about embodying a core identity that is rare, disciplined, magnetic. A man who doesn't chase validation because he already knows his worth. And if you're not there yet, it's not because you're broken. It's because no one ever showed you the playbook. Until now. See, Neil Strauss, author of The Game, didn't start out as a high-value man. He was an invisible guy, bookish, insecure, overlooked. The kind of man society raises in silence. But he made a decision, one that you can make right now, to evolve, not into someone fake, but into someone undeniable. And it starts from within. Women don't fall for your car, your bank account, or your muscles. They fall for how those things reflect the discipline behind the man. Because a high-value man isn't addicted to comfort. He chooses discomfort, growth, and delayed gratification, because he knows what he's worth. But let's strip away the fluff and get into the meat. What separates a high-value man from the average? What behaviors? What mindset shifts? What energy does he walk with? First, he controls his time. He's not reactive. He doesn't text all day. He doesn't wait around. He doesn't seek approval. He leads. He decides. He builds. This alone places him in the top 1% of men, because most guys are still operating from a place of scarcity, hoping to be chosen instead of doing the choosing. The high-value man understands what Robert Greene calls strategic patience. He doesn't rush outcomes. He plays the long game. In seduction, in business, in life, he knows that every yes from the world comes after 10 disciplined no's. You ever wonder why some men walk into a room and women glance before even seeing their face? It's not just their looks, it's their energy, their posture, their calmness. That calmness is power. Because in a chaotic world, a grounded man is the most attractive force. And make no mistake, this isn't about being alpha in some loud, performative way. This is quiet dominance. The kind of confidence that comes from competence, from knowing who you are, what you offer, and what you refuse to tolerate. Neil Strauss talks about inner game as the foundation of everything. Without it, all techniques are temporary. You can learn openers, routines, even tricks. But if you don't fix the identity running the show, you'll always be chasing, never leading. So how do you fix that identity? Start by reclaiming control of your biology. No high-value man is run by his dopamine. If your day is ruled by instant gratification, scrolling, porn, junk food, lazy thoughts, you've already lost the battle. Because your brain is training itself to be comfortable with weakness. And weakness repels attraction. Look around. Most guys are passive, distracted, soft. The high-value man becomes rare by choosing what others avoid. Cold showers, early mornings, strength training, reading instead of watching, saying no instead of people-pleasing. All of these are signals to your own brain that you're in charge, and women feel that even before they know why they're drawn in. Let's talk about boundaries. If you want to be respected by women, by friends, by society, you have to master the word no. No to drama. No to manipulation. No to situations that drain your power. Because every time you say yes to things that pull you down, you're telling the world you're for sale. A high-value man is not for sale. He walks away. And that is irresistible. But here's the nuance. He's not cold. He's not emotionally numb. He simply doesn't leak energy. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't need to prove anything. He lets others reveal themselves first. This creates mystery. And mystery triggers obsession. Pickup artist Mystery, yes, the guy from The Game, once said, "The game isn't about impressing her. It's about being impressive already." That's the shift. You're not trying to get her. You're becoming the man she hopes she's good enough to keep. Think about that dynamic. Flip the script. Most men walk into interactions trying to win the girl. The high-value man walks in as if he's evaluating whether she deserves a spot in his world. That single frame change makes all the difference. This doesn't mean arrogance. This means standard. You set the bar, emotionally, physically, spiritually. If she doesn't meet it, you're gone. And that's not an act. That's real self-respect. Let's go deeper. When you speak, slow down. Control the space. Don't rush to fill silences. That's what low-value men do when they're nervous. Own the pause. Breathe. Let your words sink. Women are far more responsive to emotional tone than content. She won't remember your exact words, but she'll never forget how your presence made her feel. This is what high-value energy does. It doesn't try to impress. It invites submission without demanding it. It makes her want to earn you. That's the secret nobody tells you. Attraction is not about convincing. It's about allowing. She must feel the invitation, not the push. You've been conditioned to think women want flashy, but what she craves is certainty. Certainty that you know what you're doing, certainty that you're not desperate, certainty that you're not like the others, and certainty only comes from internal clarity. Clarity about your purpose, clarity about your values, clarity about your path. Without that, you're drifting, and drift is the enemy of masculine power. Women feel drift like animals smell fear. It's not logical, it's primal. They can sense when a man lacks direction, and it repels them more than anything. The high-value man is never stuck. Even in uncertainty, he moves with intention. He doesn't have all the answers, but he trusts his instincts. He acts, he adapts, he corrects. But he never begs, he never waits for permission. He understood early that being a high-value man isn't about having everything. It's about needing less validation, less noise, less distraction. Because when a man no longer craves external approval, he becomes the source. He radiates something stronger than charm. Certainty, and certainty is intoxicating. When she looks at you, she's not analyzing your jawline or your job title. She's feeling something deeper. Is this a man I can follow? A man who won't fold under pressure? A man who stands taller in chaos? That's the test, and you pass it not with words, but with energy, with presence. That presence is built in silence, in the gym when you don't feel like pushing, in the discipline of reading while others binge, in sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it. Most men run. A high-value man sits in the fire and grows. He understands that emotional control is his strongest weapon. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't get thrown off by tests. He welcomes them. Because he knows. Women don't test to destroy. They test to discover. To see what you're made of. Will you crack? Will you chase? Will you collapse? Or will you stay still, unshaken? That calm is what pulls her in. Not because you're showing her something, but because you're showing her what she can't shake. And when she can't shake it, she starts to crave it. This is why abundance isn't about dating 5 women. It's about being the man who could, but doesn't have to. Who has options but chooses selectively. That's power. And women are deeply attracted to that restraint. Because restraint means control. Control means strength, and strength means security. High-value men don't chase, they invite. They don't persuade, they present. They don't perform, they embody. And that difference is everything. Because when a woman senses that you're unaffected by her beauty, it disrupts her pattern. Most men melt. You don't. And that contrast drives her wild. Now think about conversation. Most guys talk too much, trying to be funny, smart, interesting. But the high-value man listens, not to impress, but to assess. He asks calibrated questions. He makes her qualify herself. And suddenly, she's investing. She's proving. She's chasing. Because now the frame has flipped. And frame, make no mistake, is everything. If you walk into an interaction hoping to be liked, you've already lost. The high-value man is the frame. He decides the vibe. He sets the tone. And if someone doesn't fit that tone, he doesn't adjust. He exits. This is what makes women obsessed. Not because you gave them attention, but because you made them earn it. In a world where everyone gives it away for free, your value rises when you make yours rare. Now let's talk posture, literally and metaphorically. Your body tells a story before your mouth opens. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes steady, breathing slow. This tells her you're not in a rush. You're not afraid. You're not desperate. You own space. Even how you enter a room matters. A high-value man doesn't dart around like he's looking for approval. He moves with purpose. He observes. He chooses where to be. He places himself, not randomly, but strategically. And others notice. Why? Because we're wired to follow calm leadership. not volume, not chaos. Calm. That's what separates a leader from a follower. The high-value man leads without needing followers. He doesn't chase clout. He builds quietly. And people gravitate toward that mystery. Women sense it before they understand it. It's not what you say, it's what you withhold. Not what you show, it's what you restrain. Seduction, at its core, isn't about tricks. It's about tension. Creating it. Holding it. Never rushing to resolve it. And most men fail because they break the tension too soon. They compliment too fast. They confess too early. They reveal too much. But tension is where desire lives. The high-value man knows this, and he stays in that space comfortably. He lets her wonder. He lets her imagine. He lets her chase. Because he's not trying to fill silence. He's leveraging it. Think of James Bond. He never rushes, never over-explains. Every word is intentional, every move precise. That's not an accident. That's high-value energy. Calm, focused, unapologetically masculine. This type of man doesn't avoid emotions, he masters them. He feels deeply but responds selectively. He can express himself, but never from a place of loss of control. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you're numb. It means your emotions don't control your direction, you do. Now here's something no one tells you. Becoming a high-value man is lonely at first, because when you raise your standards, you lose comfort. You lose distractions. You lose people who were never really aligned. But in that silence, you gain something greater. Respect. Self-respect. And eventually, real attraction. From those who see your light and aren't intimidated by it. You're no longer seeking shallow approval. You're living in deep alignment. And women feel that. They feel when you're full, when you don't need them, but choose them. That's rare. That's compelling. That's unforgettable. A man of high value does not argue for his worth. He demonstrates it silently. He doesn't announce his goals to the world. He lets results speak. While others seek constant validation online, he plays in the shadows, building things no one understands until it's too late to compete. He is quiet power, not loud noise. This man doesn't fear solitude. He embraces it, because solitude isn't isolation for him, it's refinement. While the world scrolls, he strategizes. While others avoid stillness, he sharpens vision. And that vision becomes his edge. Because a man without vision becomes a man easily led. But the high-value man is not led. He leads. One of the most magnetic qualities you can ever develop is direction. Not fake ambition, not generic goals. Clear, aligned purpose. Purpose that you can feel in your spine when you wake up. That gives you energy when motivation fades. That keeps your energy steady around women. Not because you're pretending, but because your life is already full. You become high value when your life feels so meaningful that a woman's presence isn't your fuel, it's your bonus. And this is where most men get it wrong. They try to make women their purpose. They think relationships will give them clarity, identity, happiness. But no woman is attracted to a man who makes her the center of his world. She wants to be part of a powerful story, not the entire story. That's the subtle truth women rarely articulate. They don't just want to feel loved. They want to feel led. Not controlled, not dominated, but held in a direction. And if you don't have that direction, you can't provide the emotional leadership that sparks desire. You have to live with principles. The high-value man doesn't betray his values just to impress. He doesn't lie to keep the peace. He doesn't shift his character to avoid discomfort. He stands firm, and that stability is what creates emotional trust. Because when she sees you hold your ground under pressure, when you can say no without anger, yes without hesitation, and walk away without drama, she sees something rare, a spine. And in a world full of spineless men, that alone makes you irresistible. But it's not just emotional leadership, it's spiritual dominance. The man who commands respect doesn't just read books on masculinity. He integrates the lessons. He doesn't just consume content on confidence, he tests it in the real world. He refines himself not to impress women, but to fulfill his highest potential. Women are a byproduct of that process, not the reason for it. And here's something deep. The high-value man isn't defined by how many women he attracts, but by how many he rejects. Because every time you say no to someone who doesn't align with your values, your internal power compounds. You're telling your subconscious, we don't settle. And when your subconscious believes you don't settle, your energy changes. Your eyes shift. Your walk is different. Your words slow down. You stop trying to convince and start expecting. And women feel it immediately. It's not cockiness. It's congruence. Your internal world matches your external behavior. Now think about how that energy impacts social dynamics. You walk into a room and you don't need to be seen, but you are. You speak less, but when you do, people listen. You don't gossip. You don't overshare. You observe. You ask. You decide. And you do it with calm intensity. Because the high-value man never loses himself in a crowd. He makes the crowd orbit around him. This isn't about being alpha in the cliché way. It's about being deeply unbothered. Because the man who needs nothing attracts everything. The man who is ready to walk away becomes the one people want to follow. That's true leverage. That's where all attraction begins. You don't fake confidence, you build self-respect. You don't pretend to have a good life. You create one. One you're proud to invite others into, not because you want to impress, but because it reflects your standards. And when your life has standards, it naturally filters out anyone who doesn't rise to meet them. Let's take it further. When you interact with women, stop asking, how can I win her? And start asking, what is she showing me about herself? That curiosity flips the dynamic. Instead of auditioning, you're evaluating. Instead of impressing, you're leading. And most men never do this. They see beauty and lose frame. They overinvest, overtalk, overcommit. But the high-value man never trades attention for validation. His time is currency. His attention is earned. And because it's rare, it's powerful. He doesn't play games, but he plays to win. There's a certain gravity to a man who knows who he is. Not because he says it, not because he shouts it, but because it's felt. A woman feels it in how he pauses before speaking, in how he makes decisions without waiting for permission, in how he walks into a room without needing to dominate, yet somehow ends up being the center of attention anyway. That's not luck. That's the result of alignment. Alignment between thought, action, and purpose. Between who he is privately and who he presents publicly. No masks, no fronts, just full congruence. That's the essence of masculine energy at its peak. And it's magnetic, not just to women, but to the world. Because people don't follow men who are loud, they follow men who are certain. And certainty doesn't come from faking it. It comes from testing yourself again and again until your confidence is earned. Until your self-worth isn't a concept, but a lived experience. This is why the gym matters. Not just for aesthetics, but because every rep, every set, every drop of sweat is a vote for the man you are becoming. It's not about building muscle. It's about building discipline. It's about choosing pain when comfort is easier. And every time you choose pain over ease, your internal value increases. And people feel that. They feel when you've earned your strength, when you've struggled, when you've forged character through discomfort. It gives your words weight, your presence density. And in a world of superficial signals, depth becomes irresistible. Now let's go deeper into what creates depth. Curiosity. Depth is created through curiosity, not about facts, but about people. A high-value man is deeply curious about the human condition. He studies behavior. He listens between the lines. He reads intention, not just language. He pays attention to what people hide, not just what they say. This gives him an almost intuitive edge, because where most men react, he responds. Where others seek approval, he seeks understanding. And when you understand people better than they understand themselves, you gain a kind of power that doesn't require words, a power that influences without forcing. That's the power of psychological mastery. Neil Strauss called it inner game, but in the deeper layers, it's emotional calibration, knowing when to lean in, when to pull back, when to challenge, when to nurture, when to let silence breathe. That's where seduction becomes art. Because seduction isn't about pushing, it's about allowing. Allowing her to step closer, allowing her to invest, allowing her to feel safe being feminine in your presence. Not because you asked her to, but because your grounded masculine gave her space to relax into it. This is what most men miss. They think high value is being aloof or cold. But real high value is about being safe, not weak, not passive, safe. The kind of man who has chaos under control, who can lead when things fall apart, who doesn't need to prove anything because his track record speaks louder than his mouth. That kind of man makes her lean in, not because he begged, but because he created a field so stable that she can't help but be drawn to it. Stability is the new sexy. In a world of emotional volatility, a man who is steady becomes a lighthouse, and steadiness doesn't mean stillness. It means you move with intention, that you choose your battles, that you don't waste energy reacting to everything. You conserve your force for what matters. And that conservation is what gives you impact. Because the man who speaks all the time gets ignored, but the man who speaks only when it matters gets remembered. Now apply this to seduction. You don't need to impress with words. You impress with stillness, with eye contact that doesn't flinch, with touch that's confident, not needy, with responses that come from choice, not desperation. That's where real masculine polarity comes from. She feels it in your pacing, in how you guide the interaction, in how you take the lead, whether it's ordering a drink or pulling her close. You don't wait for signs. You create the moment. And when she feels your decisiveness, she relaxes. Because now she can drop the masculine role she's had to wear all day and surrender to something stronger. This isn't domination, it's containment. You don't overpower her, you hold her, emotionally, mentally, even energetically. That's what women want but rarely find, a man who can hold space. But to hold space for her, you must first hold space for yourself, which means mastering your emotions, owning your desires, processing your pain without projecting it, being honest with yourself about where you're weak and choosing to strengthen it, not avoid it. That kind of self-ownership makes you bulletproof. And when you're bulletproof emotionally, she can be soft around you, because she knows you won't crumble, you won't panic, you won't collapse when things get hard. And that makes you not just attractive, but irreplaceable, because high-value men are anchors. They are clarity in chaos, calm in storms, depth in a shallow world. And they don't need to be loud or rich or famous, they just need to be rooted. Rooted in values, in purpose, in mastery. And that rooting makes them rare. A high-value man doesn't chase applause. He attracts respect. He doesn't need to be the loudest voice, the flashiest dresser, or the biggest presence in the room, because his value is internal. It's not rented through status symbols. It's earned through consistency, through principles, through relentless self-respect. And when he walks through the world with that silent strength, everything shifts. Women notice, men respect, opportunities align, not because he forces it, but because the world responds to energy that cannot be shaken. This man doesn't need to prove that he's rare. His presence already says it. He leads himself first, and in doing so, others want to follow. Now I want you to really ask yourself something. What would your life look like if you truly committed to becoming that man? Not for women, not for society, not for external recognition, but for you. What would happen if you stopped waiting and started building? Because the truth is, everything you need to become high value is already in you. It's not about adding more, it's about stripping away the noise, the excuses, the fear, and returning to your core. That version of you, the grounded, disciplined, unshakable man, is already possible, and this is your moment to step into him. If this message hit something real in you, if it woke up that quiet part of your masculine energy that's been waiting for a reason to rise, then don't just listen. Engage. Drop a comment below. Tell me what resonated with you most. What part of you is ready to level up? And more importantly, share this with a brother who needs it. Because high-value men don't grow in silence. They build each other up. We're not here to play small. We're here to lead, to evolve, to become undeniable. So hit like if you're on that journey. Subscribe if you're ready to keep walking it with me. And remember this, becoming a high-value man isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. Make it today.